Music. Joining us now, the host of a Sports Talk Mississippi, Richard Cross. Hey, Richard, how are you today, man?
Gerard, happy Monday. What a fun football weekend we had.
It sure was. Good to see you there on the platform. Pre-game, I was headed over to the School of Accountancy annual fall tailgate. Had a really good experience over there, but that place was packed, wasn't it?
Do you ever not wear a suit coat?
Yeah, I do. When it's hot, really hot outside. But I did have one on at the game. You probably noticed that, right?
Yeah, I saw. That's just why I was curious. I mean, that's kind of like a thing of years gone by. Everybody in sport coat. I think you were in a suit with the golf shirt. So I just was curious. It's a good look. It works for you, though.
You know, my wife says you just got to be who you are, and that's just who I am. So, I don't.
We keep talking about playing golf. I'm just curious if you'll have on a navy pinstripe suit coat if we ever play golf with khaki shorts and a golf shirt.
Negative. Khaki shorts and a golf shirt. Today, let's see. Oh, this is from one of my technology partners, ConnectWise. So I was part of the ConnectWise Innovation Network, and it is a golf shirt.
There you go.
But anyhow, it's good to have you on. Good to talk to you. That place was packed. I had a good game up there in Oxford, and of course, Mississippi State, fantastic win at Vanderbilt. And but JSU, sans Coach Deion Primetime Sanders, had a good weekend as well. But what about some of these other crazy games? I'm just looking at the stark contrast of the 2018 9-overtime game and the Wake Forest Army 70-56 game. What's going on?
Yeah, it was pretty incredible. So that game you mentioned, Wake Forest, they scored 70 points, and their total time of possession was 17 minutes. It was a ton of big plays for Wake. Army had over 400 yards rushing in that game and scored 56 points. Not only did they not win, they did not cover. That is, by the way, I don't know if you've ever been on campus at West Point, but that is one of the most stunningly beautiful places on planet Earth. Right there on the banks of the Hudson, kind of raised up a little bit. My wife's cousin is a West Point graduate. We went up a few years ago for his graduation ceremony, and that was just incredible. But yeah, no, I mean, you think back to when Ole Miss and Arkansas played the 7-overtime game, and it absolutely lasted forever, and it was exhausting. But they've changed the overtime rules, and so now after the second overtime, it's not you start at the 25 and drive in. After the second overtime period, and this was really in response to the Texas A&M LSU game from a couple of years ago at the end of the season. Somebody said, we just can't do this anymore. This isn't good for the game. And so they go to alternating two-point conversion plays, and neither team converted a two-point conversion in the 4th, 5th, 6th, or 7th overtime periods. We ultimately got to the 9th, and Illinois, whose coach, if you remember this name, is Brett Bielema, that was at Arkansas, was at Wisconsin before that. They're able to knock off Penn State, coached by James Franklin, on the road. And, you kind of watch the body language and the reaction of those Penn State players at the end. It's like, you got to be kidding me. We just lost this game. Illinois has not been very good this year. But I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, I think it was before the Tennessee game in our pregame show, I said, every time we think we've got it figured out, college football happens. We had it happen again.
That's true. Good point.
You mentioned Ole Miss and Mississippi State. Yeah, Mississippi State did what they were supposed to do, right? They played a bad Vanderbilt team. They put 45 points on the board. That was only, I think, the 4th time under Mike Leach that Mississippi State has scored more than 30 points in a game. Will Rogers was plenty good. They played the backup quarterback at the end, scored a bunch of points. And so Mississippi State accomplished what they needed to accomplish. And, for Ole Miss, that game was not a work of art when it was all said and done. Ole Miss was clearly the better team on Saturday and allowed some mistakes. I think it was 12 penalties for a little over 100 yards. That kind of muddied things up a little bit. But all in all, a great win and one that didn't come down to the final play. And, that the game was only part of the storyline. I mean, this was a day where Ole Miss retired Eli Manning's number. There was a great celebration. The weather was perfect, sellout crowd. I've talked to a bunch of people since Saturday, and everybody's reaction was that was as close to a perfect weekend, a perfect game day as you can come by. There was just good all the way around, including a win at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. Great analysis there. So we're in the throes of the season, a little beyond a midway. Things are starting to shape up. The thing that struck me the most is looking at the rankings in the top 10.
Yeah.
It's unusual relative to what we're certainly not used to seeing Cincinnati up there. That's for starters. And it's not quite as dominated by the SEC as we've typically seen.
No, it's not. And I mean, you've got obviously Georgia, who is, by all accounts and by all appearances, the most complete team in college football. You've got Alabama there, at number 4. They've got the one loss to Texas A&M. And they can score in bunches. And that game against Tennessee on Saturday night was close right up until the point that it wasn't. And it was kind of like blink of an eye. All of a sudden, it's a 3-score game. But Alabama is not as dominant as they have been in recent years. But they're still really, really good, and they're still really talented. And I would say bet against Nick Saban and his team's success at your own peril. You've got Texas A&M playing well. You've got Ole Miss sitting there at number 10. So, 4 SEC teams either in or knocking on the door of the top 10. I honestly thought that, and if you look at the points total in the AP, there are only a couple of points separating Iowa at number 9 and Ole Miss at number 10. Maybe only be 1 point, kind of separating those two. I mean, I think if you look at the body of work, you think Ole Miss is probably a better team than Iowa. But it's all going to sort itself out at this point. I mean, Ole Miss has got a great opportunity, but a huge challenge this week when they go to Auburn. Auburn's actually a favorite in this game, a small favorite, but a favorite nonetheless. If Ole Miss beats Auburn, I think you see a little bit of a jump. They probably move into that 7-8 range. And then, you look at what's left on the schedule. So it's the trip to Auburn, back home for the game against Liberty. And regardless of what people want to say about Hugh Freeze and the emotion, Ole Miss is so much better than Liberty. That's a game that shouldn't be in the balance. And then Texas A&M. Vanderbilt's terrible, and then you get the Egg Bowl when kind of all bets are off. And so we've kind of gotten to a point, and this is a weird place to be, right? Because historically, an 8-win season for Ole Miss is a fantastic year, historically. But now 8 is the floor when you look at Liberty and Vanderbilt being left on the schedule, and frankly, not getting more than 8 is probably a disappointment for Ole Miss, given the opportunity that they've got, the quarterback that they've got.
Yeah, I agree with your analysis totally there, and it's amazing how I guess a little bit of taste of winning, and especially games that typically you maybe don't expect to win, and in the past you've struggled with. Now you come to expect it. That's just the way we fickle fans are, I guess. That sort of tells the story, I think, in college football, and it's all about what have you done for me lately.
Yeah, and I mean a huge game this weekend for Mississippi State, right? So they've got Kentucky coming in, and really on both sides of that, that's Mississippi State's permanent Eastern Division crossover. So they play Kentucky every single year, and that is a game where if you ask Mississippi State fans going into any given year, when you're doing the whole W or L or circle the wins on the schedule before the season starts, that's a game you circle because you expect to beat Kentucky. But on the flip side, when Kentucky fans do that, they circle the Mississippi State game as, that's one you got to win if you're going to have a good season. Well, you got Kentucky sitting there with only 1 loss. They're a slight favorite, I think a 1.5-point favorite over Mississippi State in Starkville. It's a really important game for both of those teams. Mississippi State in its quest to get to bowl eligibility and then try and kind of get a little bit past that. And, I mean, Kentucky's looking at its remaining schedule and going, 10 wins, 11 wins, very much doable. But that starts in Starkville on Saturday night. So I think a huge one coming up for Mississippi State and Kentucky this weekend.
And both games, the Ole Miss Auburn game, the Kentucky Mississippi State game, at the same time. I think 30 minutes maybe different start time. I'm actually headed up to Waverly with some of my buddies to play a golf weekend, and I think maybe going to the Mississippi State game, but I might have to have my phone or something going on with the Ole Miss game at the same time. Oh, my gosh.
You're good. You just grab that Spire phone and pop up the ESPN app, and you can watch the Rebels in Auburn while you're watching Mississippi State in person. I'm jealous. I'm actually going to miss both of them this weekend. I got to go to Philadelphia. I'm doing television for UCF and Temple on Saturday morning. So I'm hoping the plane has got televisions on it coming home so I can watch the football coming home Saturday night.
Very cool. Appreciate you joining us, Richard, as always. Take care, and we'll talk soon.
All right, man. Talk to you soon.
Stay with us on Middays. We'll come right